way in. So the weekend and into the start of the new working week looks like it will turning more unsettled, but also a little bit fresher. Bye-bye.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the people's channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the people's channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the people's channel, Britain's news channel.
Happy Friday, one and all. It's 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, Brexit 7 years on. My verdict. The so-called stupid people who voted for it were anything but. In the big story, following the tragic death of 5 people in a submarine this week, we'll speak to the great-granddaughter of a survivor of the Titanic to get a sense of the hell these grieving families are now going through. My Mark Meets guest is the former professional footballer and reality star Ashley Cain, who has embarked on the world's toughest survival race in memory of his little girl, who he lost to leukemia at the age of just 8 months old. He tells his incredibly moving story before the end of the hour. In my take at 10, my first on-air reaction to the news that a school pupil thinks they're a cat, and teachers are encouraging it. The case for homeschooling grows by the day. You won't want to miss my explosive response to this shocking story. So, a busy 2 hours to come. Try and get the kids into bed. Put something cold and fizzy in the fridge. After all, it's a hot Friday night. Let's make it an evening to remember. So, my big opinion is on its way. My verdict on Brexit 7 years on. First, the headlines with Rory Smith.
Thank you very much, Mark. Mortgage holders struggling with repayments will be given a 12-month grace period before repossessions begin. It's after the Chancellor met with mortgage lenders to discuss what more can be done to support struggling households. Under the measures being rolled out in the coming weeks, borrowers will be able to extend the term of their mortgages or temporarily move to an interest-only plan. Labour says the new measures are a weak response, but Jeremy Hunt says the plans will help those who face losing their homes.
The most significant thing is that they can pick up the phone to their bank or their mortgage lender and talk about their situation without any worry that it will impact their credit score. And if they decide to make their payments easier by extending the period of their mortgage or by going to an interest-only package, they can go back to their original package without any questions asked, without any impact on their credit score within 6 months. That's the reassurance that people like Martin Lewis have been saying will make a big difference for families in those situations.
Braintree District Council has lost an appeal over plans to use the Wethersfield airfield in Essex to house asylum seekers. The council brought legal action against the Home Office over the proposed use of the site to accommodate up to 1,700 male asylum seekers for up to 6 months. The local authority argued proposals would breach planning control, but judges dismissed the appeal, ruling in favour of the Home Office. A man has pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of 39 people found dead in a lorry trailer in Essex in 2019. 50-year-old Marius Dragici was detained by police in Romania last year. He was charged with 39 counts of manslaughter and conspiracy to assist unlawful immigration. He's alleged to be the ringleader of a people smuggling gang. In 2021, 4 other defendants were jailed for their roles in the deaths. Strikes at Heathrow have been called off as workers accept a new pay deal. More than 2,000 staff members were due to strike for 31 days throughout the summer. Unite Union says workers will receive a pay increase of between 15.5% and 17.5%. And the royal family were out in force today at Ascot. The King and Queen, they led the traditional royal carriage procession that was around the parade ring in glorious sunshine today. Following them in another carriage was the Prince and Princess of Wales. Kate was wearing a red Alexander McQueen dress and a matching Philip Tracy hat. They were also joined by acting royalty. That was Dame Judi Dench, who was in the procession's 4th carriage. TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News. Now though, back to Mark.
Thanks, Ryan. We'll see you at 10. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, Brexit 7 years on. My verdict. The so-called stupid people who voted for it were anything but. In the big story following the tragic death of 5 people in a submarine this week, we'll speak to the great-granddaughter of a survivor of the Titanic to get a sense of the hell these grieving families must now be going through. My Mark Meets guest is the former professional footballer and reality star Ashley Cain, who has embarked upon the world's toughest survival race in memory of his little girl, who he lost to leukemia at the age of just 8 months old. He tells his incredibly moving story before the end of the hour. In my Take at 10, my first on-air reaction to the news that a pupil at school thinks she's a cat and teachers are encouraging it. The case for homeschooling grows by the day. You won't want to miss my explosive response to this shocking story. As biological males continue to participate in female sport, will the woke war on women ever end? I'll be asking tonight's Newsmaker, legendary Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies, MBE. Mark Dolan Tonight is the home of the papers, with tomorrow's front pages from 10:30 sharp. With 3 top pundits who haven't been told what to say and who don't follow the script. Emma Burnell, Aidan McGee, Mike Porky Parry. Tonight I'll be asking the pundits, is the idea of the British gentleman no more? Are right-wing women more attractive than lefties? Not my statement, a new survey. Also, are vegans a pain in the arse? Plus your emails, especially the spicy ones, mark@gbnews.com. This is the least censored programme on the British airwaves. Now, this show has a golden rule. What is that rule? It's a bulletproof rule. It's my red line. It's a line I won't cross. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. So a cracking Friday night of entertainment we have for you. Big debates, big stories, but let's start with my big opinion. Seven years ago today, 17.5 million people voted for Britain's exit from the political bloc known as the European Union. It was a result that surprised many, not least the media, corporate and political establishment, who had focused all of their energies on the Remain cause, with the likes of George Osborne predicting Armageddon if we left. Well, it didn't happen. After a sustained effort by undemocratic Remainers to reverse the decision, not least the cervix-free leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, who pushed for a second referendum, another example of his catastrophically bad judgment, we ultimately got Brexit across the line. We're out. Now, there have been problems. EU nationals who have perfectly good grounds to live here going through visa hell. Small businesses in particular dealing with a quagmire of paperwork, many of whom are giving up exporting altogether. This is a problem. A possible impact on economic growth and continued friction on trade and the passage of goods. But what do you expect when we have exited a political and economic union that we've been part of for over 4 decades? It's ridiculous to judge Brexit so soon. But even if you do make an appraisal of Brexit right now, today, tonight on this show, the case for our departure grows ever stronger. And I say that as someone who voted Remain, but unfashionably accepted the result and decided to embrace it. We acted unilaterally on the vaccine rollout, whilst the European Commission's Ursula von der Leyen threatened to blockade supplies to the UK and even threatened erecting a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic. Whilst net migration is at unsustainably high levels, it would be immeasurably higher if we still had free movement. It would be 1 million, maybe 1.5 million every year, who knows? Brexit was an immediate insurance policy against ever closer union and effectively becoming a member state of the United States of Europe. The EU, through ideology and economic necessity, is fast becoming a federalist superpower. Even most Remainers wouldn't want to be part of that. Brexit was an immediate insurance policy against a single European army. Look how the EU dithered and delayed over Ukraine. Brexit is an end to payments of £2 billion a month, which over 2 decades amounts to the entire cost of the pandemic. We've also saved a one-off cost of almost £200 billion, which would have been our contribution to the EU's disastrous overreaction to COVID. So that number on the side of the bus wasn't true. It's much higher, in fact. Brexit is an insurance policy against a hellish pandemic treaty that the EU are currently drawing up, which would enforce draconian lockdowns Europe-wide in the event of a future pandemic. Outside of the EU, we can do with Sweden, who have now clearly won the argument on pandemic measures. No lockdowns, no mask mandates, and the lowest pandemic deaths since 2020. Brexit has given us the ability to trade with the rest of the world, including the CPTPP, which I thought was a medicine for a sore throat, but is in fact a trading bloc larger than the whole of the EU, made up of fast-rising economies, not those in gradual decline like on the continent. Plus, people forget to mention this, but we do have tariff-free trade with the EU as well. That's right. It turns out we're still trading with the EU very successfully. Who knew? Brexit enabled the unprecedented AUKUS deal on nuclear subs with Australia and the United States, something we wouldn't have had a cat's-in-hell chance of agreeing if we were still in the bloc. Brexit has been an immediate insurance policy against the euro, A hellish one-size-fits-all currency which favours the likes of Germany and which punishes the likes of Italy. Yes, we are in the mother of all messes at the moment economically, but we can pull all the levers that we need to in our own national interest without having to consult 27 other economies. And let's talk about the economy. The UK enjoyed the highest growth in the G7 for the last 2 years, and despite the prophets of doom at the IMF, Britain didn't have a year-long recession. In fact, we have avoided recession altogether. Meanwhile, both Germany and the Eurozone are in recession, and they didn't have Brexit. Funny that. It's early days for Brexit. This country is taking baby steps with its newfound independence. And yes, plenty of Brexiteers would like to see a bolder approach, the restoration of Northern Ireland's integrity as part of the UK, and more Brexit benefits. But I believe that will come. Brexit was about sovereignty, absolutely. But it was about democracy too. And as Remain voices tried for years to reverse or dilute the decision, I genuinely feared for civil order in this country. Thank God those seeking to reverse Brexit did not prevail. And they must not prevail in the future, including under a Labour government who speak terrifyingly of reconnecting with Brussels. Brexit is not perfect. It's a work in progress. But the case for our political, diplomatic and economic independence grows by the day. The people we were told were stupid for voting for it were not so stupid after all. Brexit is a challenge, a conundrum and a puzzle. But it's a gift too, one which I believe will keep on giving. One day I'm going to break my ankle running across that studio. Lovely to have your company. Your reaction, please, to my big opinion. Your appraisal of Brexit. We've been running an exclusive Mark Dolan Tonight People's Poll. We've been asking if there was a referendum tomorrow, would you vote Brexit or Remain? So jump on Twitter, please vote in that, and let me know via email how you think Brexit is going. Mark at gbnews.com. Let's bring in my top pundits tonight. Delighted to welcome political consultant Emma Burnell, broadcaster Aidan McGee, and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry. Great to have all three of you with me. Aidan, let's start with you. Your appraisal of Brexit.
I'm disappointed with it, actually, but I kind of suspected that this would be the case because I never believed in those who were pledging to deliver it. So, for example, I remember I was overseas, I didn't vote in the referendum at the time. I never believed, with all the weight of expectation against it, against the Leave campaign, that with the government paying fortunes for leaflets to go out to doors, through letterboxes, the campaign that it was pretty one-sided, wasn't it? Towards in favour of Leave, it had the weight of kind of the will of the government behind it. I felt the Blairites running the Tory party at the time, Blair and Osborne and Cameron running it. I felt that they were very much behind it, and they were. There was the emergency budget straight afterwards. We were promised, and they said on the doorsteps of number 10, "Oh yeah, no, we don't need that after all." So many lies. So I never believed, even when we saw those two give way to Theresa May and that insipid government that she presided over for a couple of years. I never believed there was any kind of ability to do it. I never thought that Boris Johnson had the ability to do it either. I wasn't even convinced he was a pure Brexiteer from the very beginning. So it could have been a lot better. I wonder if there had been some true Brexiteers in charge of the whole thing from day one. I think it might have been better. It took some people to stand up to the EU. I never felt there was the political will or the conviction to do so, and that's what's left me disappointed 7 years later, although I don't regret the decision to leave at all. Can
I ask you a personal question? Did you support Brexit?
Yeah, I supported it since 1992.
All right.
I put my hand up.
If there was a referendum tomorrow, would you?
Without doubt, yeah. I would, because you hope that someday there's going to be a generation of politicians who are able to deliver it. We haven't seen that so far. I think our political classes are as bad as we've ever seen in any generation I've been alive through.
Can't wait to hear Emma Burnell's thoughts, but Mike Porky Parry, your thoughts, your verdict, Brexit 7 years on.
Yeah, no, you say 7 years on, but that's since the vote. but in fact, it was only ratified on the first day of 2021. So politicians have had less than 3 years to actually get stuck in to what they should do. Remember, we've had the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. We've had the pandemic. So politicians are obviously concerned with issues which are going to smack us all in the face, whereas Brexit is going to be a long-term project. I don't think we'll see the benefits of Brexit for another 10 years, but I'm very impressed about what we've already got done. You mentioned some trade deals there. What about the Trans-Pacific rail deal, OK?
Correct.
Trade, I'm not rail deal. Trade deal. The Trans-Pacific trade deal.
That would be interesting.
TPP, which I thought was a cocktail.
Yeah, exactly. But the Trans-Pacific one means... No, the Trans-Pacific partnership...
tonight.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm suffering with hay fever, by the way, which makes me look a bit stupid, but I'm not really.
Mike, it's not possible for you to look stupid.
No. Anyway, the Trans-Pacific Partnership means that we've now got access to the biggest trading bloc in the world. And let's face it, where is the world expanding? It's in the Pacific regions, OK? And the Pacific regions go as far as touching China and Southeast Asia and all that kind of stuff. What I really dislike is the vindictiveness with which the Europeans have met the democratic decision of the British people to get out of Europe. So, for instance, it's an utter disgrace. People say Brexit isn't working. One of the reasons they're trying not to make it work is the Europeans don't want any other country to suddenly opt out of their mass socialist bloc where everybody's got to be equal. Greece has got to be equal to Germany. What a load of rubbish. That just means Germans get richer and people in Greece get poorer. So because they don't want anybody else to come out, and there are other countries, including Italy, under their new ruler, very able lady, right, who are thinking about, do we need to be in... So they want to make it as bad for us as possible. So they put all sorts of red tape in the way, whereas they should have a friendly trading agreement with us, because remember, Mercedes-Benz still want to sell a lot of their cars in the United Kingdom, where we've got more billionaires than anybody else in Europe, OK?
We still have the deficit where we buy more from them than they buy from us.
Absolutely.
We are the customer, Mike Porky Parry.
Yeah.
Clock's against us, but Emma... The bottom line is that, I mean, I voted Remain. I'm guessing you voted Remain too.
I did, yeah.
But actually, the prophets of doom have been proved wrong time and time again. The case for Brexit gets stronger by the day.
Well, no, I don't believe that to be true at all. I'm not sure. I mean, I think we've got two different voices here. One saying we haven't got proper Brexit. One saying Brexit's brilliant and we're getting all these things out of it. And I think the problem is that all of these things are in the mix when we talk about Brexit. Now, I was a Remainer. I haven't changed my mind on whether I think that was the right decision or not. But we have left. And... it's like saying, I've made a mistake, so I'm going to invent a time machine and go back and undo that. That can't happen. So what we need to do now is think about where we are and how we go forward. And it's quite interesting because you were saying in your monologue that you're really worried about Labour, reconnecting with Brussels. Mike is saying... we really need to have a better relationship with Brussels. Those are two different ways of saying the same thing.
What I'm worried about is the customs union, which means no trade deals, or a single market, which means free movement.
That is currently
and Labour
ruled
want
out.
both of those things.
Some Labour members, myself probably included,
Keir Starmer wants it.
Things,
He's
but
gagging for
they
it.
have ruled it out. It is ruled out. It won't be in the manifesto.
Starmer's ruled it out. That means it'll be happening next year.
Keir Starmer wants to be a slave to the Europeans now. He wants to be a slave. He wants to go back and apologise for those 17.4 million stupid people who voted to leave Europe.
You're the only one calling these people stupid.
I'm not.
I'm not calling
not.
them stupid at all.
No, I'm not.
You are using ridiculous techniques.
Excuse me.
You want to be a slave. Nobody wants to be a slave.
Emma, one very senior...
Let's not do that.
Hang on.
Let's actually have a decent conversation about the benefits
Well, I'll tell you
and
a
the
fact.
ways that we can make this work and how we all work together, well in the same direction, in a country which has now left.
I will tell you a fact. A very senior person in the Labour Party movement for decades now, when I said to him, why won't you respect the democratic vote of the 17.4 million who voted to come out, do you know what he said? He said they didn't know what they were voting for. They've always regarded the people who voted for Brexit.
Remainer says something stupid and you think everyone thinks everyone's an idiot. That's not how we're going to make this work.
OK, well, look, a constructive approach from Emma Burnell. What's your reaction? Brexit 7 years on. If you did vote Brexit, would you vote again? Coming up next in the big story following the tragic death of 5 people in a submarine this week, we're going to speak live on the programme to the great-granddaughter of a survivor of the original Titanic. That's next.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christys, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The people have spoken. A big reaction to my big opinion. Although I voted Remain, in my view, the case for Brexit gets stronger by the day. Sherry says, hi, Mark, I would vote for Brexit again. I still do not regret it. Peter says, dear Mark, Brexit wasn't just about immigration. It was about getting rid of the Mafia Vatican Bank. Do your research. How about this from Peter? Peter says, hi, Mark, Brexit is working remarkably well, especially given the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, as well as Theresa May's government's attempts to undermine and delay for 2 clear years. Peter goes on to say, I would vote for Brexit again. Well, we've been running a Mark Dolan Tonight People's poll on that. I'll bring you the results shortly. But it's time now for the big story, and let's get more reaction to the tragic death of 5 people who died in a small submarine this week whilst exploring the wreckage of the Titanic. We're joined now by the great-granddaughter of a survivor of the original 1914 Titanic disaster, Shelley Binder. Shirley, great to have you on the programme. There are unfortunate parallels between the 2 tragedies, aren't there?
There are many eerie parallels to the two disasters, indeed. In fact, I will say that yesterday, just as I was hearing the Coast Guard announce that they had found the remains of the submersible, it occurred to me that my great-grandmother, Leah Axe, died 56 years ago yesterday. So on the very day that they announced these 5 deaths.
Yes, and your great-grandmother and great-uncle survived. How did the family find out that they had survived?
That's a really interesting story. Much like this disaster, the Titanic happened on a Sunday. The accident happened on a Sunday, just like this. And the world was breathless for any information for many days, several days, until the Carpathia got back into radio contact with the shore in New York. So I think people were desperate to know what happened. In fact, in my family, my great-grandmother was emigrating to the United States. So her parents and her siblings were still in the UK. They were still in London, where I still have cousins to this day. And they had no idea if she lived or died for days. And that was extremely traumatizing. And my great-grandfather, he wasn't notified until the ship was nearly back to New York. So I think people don't necessarily think of that, but it was quite a lengthy journey for the Carpathia to bring back the survivors. It was 4 days. And they started to transmit the names of first-class passengers. And it was all done on rather primitive equipment. So it was difficult, and made even more difficult because many of the names were quite foreign and had special characters in them, because there were a lot of immigrants. They finally went to my great-grandfather's tenement, the agent for the White Star Line, the Titanic's line, and they notified him, I believe, on Thursday, the 18th, and he was so shocked that when the guy told him that his wife and baby had survived, he fell off his front porch and got a concussion.
Got a concussion, I'm not surprised. I've only got a couple of seconds left, Shelley, but am I right in thinking that as it was your great-grandmother, you owe your own life to the fact that she survived?
100% would not be having this conversation with you, Mark, if she hadn't have survived. And in fact, she had to fight for her life. And she was only 18 years old and had quite a dramatic escape from the ship, which is another very incredible story in itself. But there are many sad parallels to this story that we found out the end of yesterday. And I also would like to send my condolences to the family of all those that were lost, and say that another coincidence or parallel is that Stockton Rush, the designer and CEO, was on the ship and perished. And the designer of the Titanic was also on the ship and perished, Thomas Andrews. And also that Stockton Rush's wife, as I understand it, Wendy Rush, was the great-great-granddaughter of Ida and Isidore Strauss. And they were actually mentioned by my great-grandmother, as she said she saw them sitting arm in arm on the deck as she departed in a lifeboat.
Extraordinary parallels. Well, I've got no doubt that your great-great-grandmother would be very proud of you speaking so articulately this evening. Shelley Binder, thank you so much for telling us your amazing family story. Thank you, Shelley. We'll catch up again. Let's have a further look at what happened. Joining me now is Dr. Michael Guillen. Michael is an award-winning physics instructor at Harvard University and the former ABC News science editor. He's also a survivor of a previous Titanic submersible trip 23 years ago. Michael, thank you for joining us. You survived, as I've mentioned, a similar trip a long while back, so this week must have been particularly hard for you to watch.
Yeah, yes, it was, Mark. Throughout the entire week, I felt a strong kinship. Of course, at that time, we thought that perhaps they were still alive but suffering, wondering if they were going to hang in there until they could be rescued. So that part of it really reminded me enormously of my own experience of being trapped down at the wreck of the Titanic, where my sub got stuck in the propeller. It was for a relatively short while. It wasn't for days, but I tell you, when you're down there, stuck, buried alive under 2.5 miles of water, it seems like an eternity, no matter how long you're stuck down there.
Indeed so. I know that you understandably feared for your life and you feel you've been given a second chance, which tragically these 5 individuals have not. Michael, what motivates people to take such a risk in the name of exploration?
I've been very philosophical over the past week. I'm philosophical by bent anyway, but particularly this week, reflecting on what's happened, especially yesterday when we got the news. Mark, the only way I can say it is this. There is something that is hardwired into us, human species, that causes us to abandon our, proverbial survival instincts to explore worlds far beyond the Darwinian jungle. This is something that only we have. No other animal on the planet looks up on a night and just not only sees stars, but wants to go out there. Wonders what's out there and is willing to risk life and limb and spend billions of dollars to go out there. And I consider that to be a wondrous trait. It's not a flaw in our nature. It's not a quirk in our nature. It's actually the essence of our nature. And so when you get into questions such as, should tourism continue? I think that's a legitimate question. But I think you should bear in mind that you're never going to kill this essence in our being, a wish to risk life and limb to find out what's on the other side, what's at the bottom of the ocean, what's at the top of the mountain, what's out there beyond the moon, beyond the stars. That's something that is both wonderful, but also in many cases terrifying, as we witnessed yesterday.
Absolutely. We wouldn't have ships, we wouldn't have roads, we wouldn't have the automobile, we certainly wouldn't have air travel if it wasn't for that human spirit of pioneering. Michael, the film director James Cameron, who has himself dived down to the Titanic wreck several times, has criticised the project and the safety measures. What's your view?
Right now, because I am a scientist and I hear many people, not only Mr. Cameron, expressing their opinions, and he's entitled to his, I don't jump to conclusions. I'm trained to be very methodical. As a scientist, I want them to collect the evidence. Right now, they're taking a 3D map before they start moving the pieces. You don't want to disturb the scene of the accident, as it were. Upload that 3D map onto a supercomputer, try to reconstruct what actually happened. Clearly, there was a weakness in the pressure vessel. Perhaps they will consider bringing those pieces back up and putting them together like a puzzle so we can get further evidence. I think it's very essential that we really look carefully. After the U.S. shuttle Challenger exploded, that's what NASA did. And you know what they did after that is they shut down the U.S. space program for a while, not permanently. But I think we owe it to the 5 lives that were lost yesterday to be careful in how we speak and how we move forward. Let's look at the evidence with a cool head. Yes, I know there's a lot of chatter about whether this vehicle, the Titan, was seaworthy and so forth, and these are legitimate questions. But I'm not going to add to the chatter. I feel it's irresponsible and disrespectful to the 5 lives and the families and friends of those people who went down there.
Michael, I've only got a couple of seconds left, but you are a veteran of television news. So let me just ask you finally, there are reports that debris was found many days ago. Some are suggesting that the authorities sat on this story when they knew that tragedy had ensued. What's your view on that?
You know, I have been around for a long while, Mark, 4 decades of covering disasters of all kinds, hurricanes, volcanoes, and I've always found reason to question why investigators on the scene either delay or don't tell you this or that. It's quite complicated. Again, I'd rather not second guess people right now. I do, though, insist that the tough questions be asked in the days and months ahead. I'm not hiding my head in the sand or taking a position one way or another. But again, as a scientist, I look at the evidence. Let's see what kinds of conclusions we can come to. And if they've done something that is not proper, then I think we need to call them out. But honestly, the idea that they could zero in on the remains of this thing within days is amazing. Remember, the Titanic went down in 1912. It wasn't discovered until 1985, and one of the discoverers was my good friend Bob Ballard, very famous marine scientist. It took us 73 years to find the remains of the Titanic, which is gigantic compared to this mosquito-sized sub.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for filling us in, and I'm so glad that you are here to tell the tale, having survived your own deep dive. And you're absolutely right about the importance of that human spirit of adventure. Dr. Michael Guillen is an award-winning physics instructor at Harvard University and the former ABC News science editor. Thank you, Michael. We'll speak again. Fascinating conversation, I think you'll agree, and a truly tragic story. Coming up next with the pundits, I'll be asking, is the idea of the British gentleman dead? Are right-wing women more attractive than lefties? And are vegans a pain in the arse? That's next.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christys, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions, and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio, and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Well, we're just 20 minutes away from my take at 10. I'll be dealing with the school that think one of their pupils is a cat. I know it was discussed earlier in the week. My first public comments and exclusive video footage of my cat, Harry. That's in the take at 10. You won't want to miss it. But reacting to the big stories of the day, my top pundits, bringing you ringside seats to the day's big events. Political consultant Emma Burnell, broadcaster Aidan McGee, and Fleet Street legend, podcaster, co-founder of TalkSport. The drinks are on him. Mike Porky Parry, independently wealthy, good-looking, he's got it all. Now, back in the day, speaking of Mike Porky Parry, gentlemen applied to anyone who was kind, respectful and excellent at holding doors open. But in the 21st century, many people think gentlemanly behaviour should now be the bare minimum to expect from men. So, if we're doing away with an old-fashioned sense of chivalry based on gender, what makes for the modern British gentleman? Aidan?
Well, ask me.
Well, first of all, you dress like a gent, isn't
Thank
it?
you. Yeah. Well,
Absolutely, very dapper.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, look, I've dated a lot over the last couple of years. I think being a gentleman matters more now than it ever has, actually. You know, things like I love it when somebody offers to pay for dinner or pay their half of dinner.
What?
I do. I love it. I love it. I don't accept, but I love it because I was always one of those kids. My parents used to worry that I was going to be taken advantage of when I got older.
Really?
And so, yeah.
What, were you too nice for your own good?
But yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That's what they were trying to say. They were too stupid. I think that's what parents thought. So I like to be off. I like that to be. Like someone to offer that, but I never do it. I still blew it. I still always pay. Nearly always pay every time.
What do you mean nearly always?
Well, because after the first time it was I'd always pay. But maybe further down the line, maybe I might now and again say, maybe you get this one.
No.
You don't like
Call
that?
me old-fashioned if you like, but
every single time.
In the whole of my life,
what about if you're seeing someone who earns a lot more than you?
In the whole of my life, right? Now I'm entering early middle age.
The pre-war period.
Yeah. I'm entering early middle age now. I've never allowed a lady to buy a drink for me. I've never allowed a lady to pay for dinner when I've been out, or even offer half. I would take that's an insult. Oh, should we go Dutch?
Have you been on a date?
You must be joking, hey?
How many times have you been on a date?
Thousands. Come on, look at me. I'm Mike Parry. Thousands, right? And if we've gone on holiday, I've paid. If we've gone away for the weekend, I've paid. I had a mate once when I worked on the Daily Express, and you won't believe, he invited his girlfriend to move in with him in a cottage in Surrey and then charged her rent. I mean, that is
There's nothing wrong with that.
Gentlemanly. No. A man's job in life...
Emma, are you amazed that I'm single? You're sitting there thinking, how on earth is Mike single?
Michael's had plenty of romance in his life.
I certainly have. A man's job in life, as far as I know, is to lead from the front.
No.
Do you know, when I was 6 years of age, my mother said to me, when you walk down the street, Michael, if there's a lady coming the other way, you move immediately to the curb.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that the lady moves on the inside.
I did that today.
Yeah. But it's gentlemanly conduct.
But I think that the concept of gentlemanly, I think we need to take it away from the financials for a start, because we live in a very, very different world where women are earning more, have their own financial independence. When I was married, we split everything 50-50, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. There are times when I've got less money when I'm going out with someone and they'll buy dinner for me, and vice versa. And I have, it's about partnership. And a gentleman is a good partner, someone who supports you when you need it and who you support when they need it, and they just give you that respect.
If you're the cash cow that Mike wants male blokes to be, you're going to be taken advantage of. You're going to be taken advantage of.
I don't mind that.
I'm going to take advantage of. I'm going to turn into what my mum worried I'd turn into.
Who wants to be treated that way, and that's fine. But it shouldn't. I don't think that there's anything wrong with expecting to be an equal partner financially and independently.
I don't think there's anything wrong with a lady expecting to be entertained. We all know the Mail on Sunday You magazine columnist Liz Jones, right?
Oh, yes.
She moans consistently that, every man she's met in life has ripped her off, when they go away to Greece for the weekend, she pays for the hotel and all that. Liz should go out with me. I would treat her like a lady.
This might be the pot for your lid, certainly. But the point is that I don't think there should be a hard and fast rule. If you're the kind of person, particularly male person, who believes that you have that role, there'll be women who believe that too. I'm one of them.
Do you know what? I think a gentleman should be both hard and fast. But
well, sometimes hard and slow is good too.
I might have revealed too much with that remark.
Emma, you're absolutely right. But I always say, I promise you, I don't ever embarrass anybody. I say, let's go out for dinner. That's great. But there's one strict rule. I'm paying.
There you go. Well,
I make that clear.
After the papers at 10:30, an exclusive new report has come out that suggests that right-wing women are more attractive. We're going to debate that at 10:45 with the papers.
That's why you got me on, Mark.
Well, you're a hot lefty. We know that. But a celebrity chef has banned vegans from his restaurant due to mental health reasons. Chef John Mountain has banned the vegans after one complained about the lack of options at his restaurant. He said the complaint resulted in lots of one-star reviews, in turn hurting his business and his mental health. So it begs the question, are vegans a pain in the arse? Emma?
Vegans, like everybody, can be as much of a pain in the arse as they want to be. I wouldn't say... I mean, the people whose mental health I worry about more, frankly, is chefs. Because I've never met a sane chef.
Because they work long hours, a lot of stress. It's all like Gordon Ramsay syndrome.
I was with a guy yesterday, a friend of mine called Joel, who's been a vegan for 10 years plus. He had a nightmare actually explaining what he wanted in this restaurant in Chelsea, right? And that shouldn't be the case. I go around corporate hospitality at football grounds all around the country, and they don't... many of them, even at my own club, QPR, we don't even have a vegan option. It's embarrassing. I take 2 separate vegan guests throughout the season. They have to battle to get something. Vegan isn't cuisine. It's just food that lacks one thing that we don't eat. It's not. We're not asking any chef to reinvent the wheel in the confines of the kitchen.
To change the world in their own vision.
Of course they do. Look, a genuine vegan, I've got lots of respect for. But there's plenty of vegans and what's the other one? Vegetarians who do it as a sort of life plan policy to be accepted in areas where they want to be accepted. And they're not really vegans. Do you remember that great film, Scum, where there was the bloke in jail said, I'm a vegan, and who's the great West Ham football fan actor? Ray Winston. Ray Winston offered him a sausage and he snuffled the sausage because he wasn't really a vegan.
If your best example is from a fictional film, I'm not sure that's that realistic.
But as far as I'm concerned, that says it all, you know?
Listen, I've got lots of vegan viewers and listeners, and you're all gorgeous. But what do you think? Are you a pain in the arse? Let me know, mark@gbnews.com. Very excited about my Mark Meets guest, former professional footballer and reality star Ashley Cain, who will tell the incredibly moving story of losing his little girl to leukemia at the age of just 8 months old. He's doing something very special to acknowledge her legacy. That's next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
And action.
Sergeant Green, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel. It's time now for this. Yes, indeed, it's time for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport and beyond. Tonight, former top professional footballer Ashley Cain, who has a history of bold adventures, including 5 marathons in 5 days and cycling from Land's End to John O'Groats. But he's taking it up a level next month by doing the world's toughest survival race, the Yukon 1000, which will see him kayak down the famous Yukon River, which is treacherous, all the way from Canada, through the Arctic Circle, and then on to Alaska, all in 10 days. It's a 1,000-mile race, much of which is wilderness in horrific conditions with no support teams. Why is he doing this? Well, in memory of his beloved little girl, Azalea Diamond Cain, who he lost to leukemia in 2020 at just 8 months old. Ashley has written a moving account of his tragic ordeal in a brand new book, which is winning rave reviews. Strong, Life, Loss and Eternal Love for My Daughter is out now. Ashley, a joy to have you on the show. Can you tell me a little bit about Azalea? What kind of girl was she? Tell me about her personality and her spirit.
Hi there. First of all, thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
Azalea is just a magnificent little girl. She's the most beautiful girl I ever set eyes on. And something about Azalea is, when we found out that she had leukemia, you know, I thought that I had to be strong for her. I thought I had to be courageous for her. I thought that I always had to smile to liven up the room and the environment around her. And it turned out she did all of those things for us. She was the strongest little girl I know, and she had such a bright personality that lit up the room. It was infectious, and that's why I think she didn't only inspire me and my family, but people around the world during the global pandemic. She was special, and that's why I want to dedicate the rest of my life now to carrying on her amazing legacy.
And a stunningly beautiful little girl as well, let me tell you. Now, Ashley, she was diagnosed with a very aggressive cancer, acute myeloid leukemia, at just 2 months old. Can you give me a sense, Ashley, of your emotions when you received this horrific diagnosis?
I mean, I've done a lot of things in my life, but nothing compares to being a father. When I had Azalea, she completed my life. And when I got that news, I can't really explain how I felt. Everything moved slow. Life didn't have no colour. And for a long period of time, I didn't really know how to move through my day and operate, because it felt like my whole world had crumbled. It felt like I'd won the lottery in reverse, because you never, ever think that anything like that is going to happen to you as a parent, and you definitely don't think it's going to happen to your child. But then instantly, as soon as we found out, we were moved into Birmingham Children's Hospital, which became our second home, and that's where we lived for 6 months. It's incredibly traumatic, and it's a situation as a parent that breaks you down to your lowest point. But also, I had the most beautiful, powerful and incredible days in that hospital because I was by her side. And she's just the best thing that has ever happened to me in my life. And it was an absolute honor to be there with her, because she taught me so much in those 8 months that I just really want to carry on spreading that to the world now.
Well, the pictures alone, Ashley, are very, very inspiring. You've created a foundation in Azalea's name to fundraise and to raise awareness of childhood cancer. You've got the book, which I've just started. It's a cracking read. Here it is. And you're about to row the Yukon. It seems this is all about giving your daughter a legacy.
100%. I mean, firstly, with the foundation, childhood cancer is the #1 killer of our children in the UK, the #1, and it receives less than 3% of cancer research funding. So the system is broken, and, you know, for me, no child deserves to go through what Azalea went through, and no parent should have to feel what I feel. So we really want to make a difference with the Azalea Foundation, and we are. And it was in writing my daughter's eulogy that I found out the person that I wanted to be and the things that I would need to do. And because my life was comprised to a hospital room with Azalea, now is my opportunity to take her around the world with nothing but daddy power. And in doing so, raising awareness and funds for these children who still have to fight.
Well, I think it's fantastic. Here is the book. I've got so many books in the studio, but this is the one, Strong. Okay, it's winning rave reviews. It's moving. It's important. The foundation is simply called the Azalea Foundation as well. Listen, you were quite the specimen when you played for Coventry City. I always admired your footballing skills. Are you still fit? Are you going to be all right for this big challenge?
I mean, I think physically I'm capable, you know, and mentally I'm so strong. There's a lot of elements on this challenge, though, that can throw things. I mean, there's treacherous waters. There's the fact that if you go in on a 4-mile lake, you're not really going to get out. If you get hypothermia, there's a 4-day extraction to get you. If you're in grizzly bear or wolf territory, there's not much you can do there.
Okay.
So there's a lot of elements that can go against us.
Ashley, you know, we are rooting for you. I'll be watching. Come and tell us about it when you complete the challenge. You're a hero. The book's out now. Next up, I'll be dealing with the school pupil that thinks they're a cat. Meow.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my take at 10, my first on-air reaction to the news that a school pupil thinks she's a cat and teachers are encouraging it. The case for homeschooling grows by the day. You won't want to miss my explosive response to this shocking story. Also, as biological males continue to participate in female sport, will the woke war on women ever end? I'll be asking tonight's Newsmaker, Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies, MBE. And Mark Dolan tonight is the home of the papers, with tomorrow's front pages from exactly 10:30 sharp. So, a busy hour to come. It's a hot summer night. Isn't the weather gorgeous? So, grab something cold and fizzy from the fridge or fire up the kettle and let's have a fun Friday night. My take at 10, and the child who thinks she's a cat is next. But first, the headlines with Rory Smith.
Thank you very much, Mark. Mortgage holders struggling with repayments will be given a 12-month grace period before repossessions begin. It's after the Chancellor met with mortgage lenders to discuss what more can be done to support struggling households. Under the measures being rolled out in the coming weeks, borrowers will be able to extend the terms of their mortgages or temporarily move to an interest-only plan. Well, Labour says the new measures are a weak response. But Jeremy Hunt says the plans will help those who face losing their homes.
The most significant thing is that they can pick up the phone to their bank or their mortgage lender and talk about their situation without any worry that it will impact their credit score. And if they decide to make their payments easier by extending the period of their mortgage or by going to an interest-only package, they can go back to their original package without any questions asked, without any impact on their credit score within 6 months. That's the reassurance that people like Martin Lewis have been saying will make a big difference for families in those situations.
Braintree District Council has lost an appeal over plans to use the Wethersfield airfield in Essex to house asylum seekers. The council brought legal action against the Home Office over the proposed use of the site to accommodate up to 1,700 male asylum seekers for up to 6 months. The local authority argued proposals would breach planning control, but judges dismissed the appeal, ruling in favour of the Home Office. A safety investigation into the fatal implosion of the Titan submersible has been launched. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada will gather information and conduct interviews at the site. It will focus on the safety of the operation, not to determine civil or criminal liability. Strikes at Heathrow have been called off as workers accept a new pay deal. More than 2,000 staff members were due to strike for 31 days throughout the summer. Unite Union says workers will receive a pay increase of between 15.5% and 17.5%. And the royal family were out in force today at Ascot. The King and the Queen led the traditional royal carriage procession that was around the parade ring in the glorious sunshine of earlier. Well, following them in another carriage was the Prince and Princess of Wales. Kate was wearing a red Alexander McQueen dress and a matching Philip Tracy hat. They're also joined by acting royalty. There you can see on television Dame Judi Dench, who was in the procession's fourth carriage. TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News. Now though, back to Mark.
Thanks, Rory. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. As biological males continue to participate in female sport, will the woke war on women ever end? I'll be asking tonight's Newsmaker, Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies, MBE. And Mark Dolan Tonight is the home of the papers, with tomorrow's front pages from exactly 10:30 sharp, with 3 top pundits who haven't been told what to say and who don't follow the script. Big stories, big guests and always big opinions. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. Let's start with my take at 10. It would be funny if it wasn't so terrifying. Following the crazy exchange between a teacher and a pupil in an East Sussex school over the idea of a female pupil calling herself a cat, a flurry of anecdotes are flooding in about similar pupils in other schools. The woman known as Britain's strictest head teacher, Catherine Burble Singh, who runs the truly inspirational state school Michaela, which has an intake of some of the most deprived children in the country, but through discipline and traditional values gets many of them into Oxford and Cambridge, has said that this cat story is not made up. She tweeted the following. She said, "People are saying I'm silly for believing the story about a cat. I've been hearing about cats plural for weeks and months from different teachers in person who have worked in schools with cats in the classroom. I've also had direct messages from parents with various stories." This is what happens when wokeism, in other words, extreme political correctness or cultural progressivism, is left unchecked. We've put up with biological men participating in female sport, entering women's bathrooms and rape crisis centres. And this madness reached its nadir in Scotland with a double rapist who calls himself Isla Bryson accommodated in a women's prison. You couldn't make it up. By accepting the fiction that you can change your biological sex, or in the case of the little cat girl, what species you belong to, we have created a monster. A monster in which primary school children are being asked whether they think they're a boy or a girl, and are changing their name or even their pronouns without parental knowledge or permission. Rishi Sunak is introducing a law to stop that from happening. Fair play. But I'll be honest, the horse has bolted. Wokeism is a terrifying cult. If you do not follow its bizarre and irrational scripture, you will be vilified, attacked, and excommunicated. Its great power comes from the mistaken idea that they are the nice people. Appropriating kindness has been their most genius move. But of course, they are anything but. They are censorious thugs who threaten violence against women for standing up for their sex-based rights. They're against freedom of speech and expression, and they seek to end careers and destroy livelihoods for anyone who doesn't accept their upside-down, topsy-turvy, biology-denying, flat-earth worldview. The problem with this dark, woke stuff is none of it makes sense, and that will ultimately be its undoing. It doesn't make sense that the evil scourge of racism is solved by segregating people or deciding, as is the credo of controversial critical race theory, that you are racist based upon the colour of your skin. It's like the great Martin Luther King never happened. But this contested ideology is being taught in many schools as fact, labelling British children of colour eternal victims. I don't see any of our wonderful, diverse British children as victims. I see them as the embodiment of our future greatness. This is a disease of the West. Islamic countries, for example, won't have any of this nonsense. But we're taking it all lying down. Kids in some schools are being taught there are over 100 genders, and you can call yourself whatever you're feeling like that day. In doing so, we are breeding a hellish new generation of self-indulgent narcissists. Children who do not adhere to a gender stereotype and who were likely going to become gay when they grew up are being diagnosed as transgender. Children with mental health issues like autism or bipolar disorder are being told the answer is they're in the wrong body. This comes at a price, with 1,000 parents now considering legal action against the NHS Tavistock Clinic for causing irreversible damage to the bodies of their children. Tip of the iceberg. What's happening in too many of our schools is the normalisation of woke ideology. At best, it's brainwashing or grooming. At worst, it's child abuse. At every level in society, in our public institutions, our schools and within corporations, it's time for an all-out war on woke. A majority of the British public who have been quiet for too long and hoped this would go away must now speak out, especially parents. This cat story proves how far we have waded into insanity. So why don't we flip this logic on its head, OK? Bear with me. Let's talk about how cats think of themselves. This is a little video of my cat, Harry, named after the Spurs footballer, not the Prince. I had a chat with Harry earlier, and he told me he's not actually a cat at all. No. Would you believe he identifies as the governor of the Bank of England? That's right, he thinks he's the governor of the Bank of England. He tells me that he would have raised interest rates a long time ago. He told me quantitative easing got us into this mess. There you go. He's not a fan of inflation. He likes nibbles instead. Do you see how bizarre all this cat stuff is? It's a warning. We are a whisker away from the total breakdown of our society. The time to act is meow. And if we don't call this out, we're the real pussies. I'm sorry, but we're laughing about the cat story, but I think it's a line in the sand. I think it's a red flag. Now, by the way, if there are girls or boys at school who identify as a furry creature, OK, they need love and support and counselling. They don't need judgment. They don't need to be attacked. Those who require judgment are the teachers that propound this nonsense. What's your view? Mark at gbnews.com, reacting to my take at 10. Political consultant Emma Burnell, broadcaster Aidan McGee, and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry. Emma, your reaction to this story?
I mean, I have two reactions. First of all, of course, it's utterly ridiculous. No child is actually a cat. I wonder if we are massively overblowing this, first of all. And the idea that one 14-year-old identifying a cat is what's going to bring down our society might be a sliver too far for me. Look, I'm a radical feminist. You're going to have the wonderful Sharon Davies on later. Massive, massive fan. And I think what she's done in standing up for women's sex-based rights is fantastic. I think an awful lot of this is going to go away because it's a trend. And, you know, kids identifying as cats is in the same as me dyeing my hair purple age 12 and trying to make my mum cross that way. You push the boundaries and you see where you can get to with them. Probably the quickest way to stop this girl being able to identify as a cat is to tell her that that's fine and her mum thinks it's really cool, because that's the last thing she's going to want. But I just think in terms of how you want to behave in your own life, do what you want, be happy. If you feel the need to curl up like a cat, I mean, maybe they should start feeding a cat food.
But we're talking about children, though, here, aren't we?
I mean, this is the thing. They have to have boundaries.
Yeah.
There is. If she wants to sit in her bedroom and meow to herself, no problem at all. If, on the other hand, she starts insisting that other people feed her cat food and milk and she lives on a diet of cat food and milk, I don't think she'd last.
Some of those flavours look quite nice, actually.
Oh, God, it's disgusting stuff. When I feed my cat in the morning, the smell is just horrendous.
Aidan, I mean, we can laugh about it, but this is where it goes. You normalise this madness. If I told you 10 years ago that a pregnant woman can have a penis, you'd have laughed about that too. And here we are.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, I do worry about education as a whole, actually. I have lots of teacher friends who are appalled by this behaviour, but they can come up with examples sometimes, not necessarily as grave as the one we're describing, but they can describe other examples or cite other examples of some really peculiar behaviour or just things appearing on the curriculum that shouldn't be there. I don't believe that this is normalised throughout schools, that the vast majority of teachers would think this was absolutely abhorrent and it's the exception rather than the rule. But I do worry about our education because I think literacy and numeracy skills are pretty much below the rest of the EU. And I think teachers have responsibilities to speak out when they think that the curriculum's not right.
Mike, listen, you're a well-educated guy. I think you went to a top grammar school in Cheshire, didn't you?
I did.
You weren't taught any of this nonsense.
No, I think we're behind the story here because the incident you're talking about was a little girl allegedly in a school in Rye, I think, OK? But I've read a report today that this is far more prevalent and it's not just little girls. I've read a report saying a 16-year-old girl identifies as a cat in a school where as many as 4 teenagers, the oldest being 16, identify as what is called as furries, that they are dedicated to behaving like cats throughout the school day, and even worse, according to this report I've read, and it was in a very distinguished newspaper publication, some other pupils go round the school with dog leads around their neck and are led by other pupils because they're simulating being an animal, being a cat or a dog.
That's just those nightclubs you go to. That's those clubs you go to, Mike.
Now, they haven't actually specified the school, but they said the location is Bedfordshire. So what I'm saying is, it's not just rumour, it's not just gossip. Somebody's gone and done a lot of research on this, and it's far more prevalent with our teenage school children than anybody possibly could have imagined.
Emma, briefly. I'm going to put your mind sort of at rest. A furry isn't what you think it is. It's not someone identifying as an animal.
Don't be dismissive, Emma.
I'm not being dismissive, Mike. I'm telling you, I know very, very specifically what a furry is. I listen to a podcast that talks about them quite often.
Can you elaborate?
That's more a fetish, isn't it?
It's a fetish. It's a fetish.
I told you, it's those clubs, Mike.
Type,
it's those clubs Mike goes to.
Last thoughts, Emma.
But Emma, don't you think it's serious that teenagers are acting like this and taking themselves seriously as a cat?
Weird sex.
No.
I mean, it's hardly unusual. I had a lot of weird sex as a teenager.
Really?
I can believe that.
I wonder whether teachers indulging the fantasy that you're another species is more damaging than wild sex in the car park. But listen, let me ask my viewers what they think. Mark at gbnews.com. Do you think it's acceptable for teachers to encourage a pupil to think they are a cat? Mark at gbnews.com is the email. We've got the papers at 10:30 sharp with full pundit reaction. You can set your clock to it. But next, as biological males continue to participate in female sport, will the woke war on women ever end? I'll be asking tonight's newsmaker, Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies, MBE. She's not happy, and she's next.
Yeah, no, furries just bless off this one.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions, and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio, and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Well, folks, you've got pupils identifying as cats now. Email from Rachel has come in. And she says, "Hi, Mark, my cat Oscar is now identifying as a ferocious tiger. What do we do now?" Rachel, I'm afraid you're a prisoner of your own home. What a terrifying creature. Look at those fangs. Big reaction on email to this. "Mark, it works both ways. My boxer dog identifies as human. I asked him how he felt this morning. He answered he felt a bit rough." Nice job, Rob, all the way from Hove. Briefly, Jane says, "I couldn't believe a grown adult educated and teaching our future generations believes a child can be a cat. Absolutely shameful." And last but not least, Jackie says, "Hi, Mark, who let children decide what they want to identify as? Ridiculous. Just tell them to shut up or get detention." By the way, what a lovely cat you have. Well, thank you, Jackie. That is Harry, and I'll be honest now, he's an international global superstar. It's time for the Newsmaker, in which we speak to a fearless commentator on the big stories of the day. And they don't get more fearless than Olympic swimmer turned author and broadcaster Sharon Davies, MBE, whose new book about biological men participating in female sport, called Fair Play, The Battle for Women's Sport, is out now. It is called Unfair Play. There it is. Unfair Play, The Battles for Women's Sports. I've got my copy here. And Sharon, you don't think that biological males should be competing against women in female sport. Why not?
Good evening. I'm loving your tie this evening and those lovely comments earlier. The book is all about the challenges to women's sport. So it starts talking about Pierre de Coubertin, who did everything in his power to keep women out of the Olympic Games. And things like, in this country, in the UK, there's 1,000 women that earn their living from doing sport. There's nearly 11,000 men. And in America, women get 1% of the sponsorship dollar that comes from sport and 4% of the airtime. So our piece of the cake is already very, very tiny. People think that it's getting bigger with things like women's football and women's rugby and a bit of women's cricket. But sadly, a lot of other sports are getting practically no coverage at all. And if I went onto the high street and said, "Please name me, Britain's best female swimmer," you'd probably really struggle, even though we've got 2 Olympic gold medalists. So it's hard going. And now we've got this situation where there's 18 peer-reviewed studies in the world. Not a single one of them says that we can remove male puberty advantage. And that's why we have men and women's races. We have those races separate because they're very different. Anywhere between 10 and 30% at the Olympic Games, which is massive. This is half the length of the swimming pool, okay? That's how different it is. And by suppressing testosterone, we can't remove that advantage. And we know that. We absolutely categorically know that. So at the moment, what we're asking, we're literally saying to young girls and to women, you're not worthy of fair sport. We're not going to give you fair sport. And that's what I have a problem with. I absolutely don't have a problem with everyone being welcome in sport. I've fought all my life for everyone to be welcome in sport. But it just must be fair. And we mustn't remove the opportunity for young women to have great opportunities in sport that equal the opportunities that men get. We've fought so hard and we've still got a lot of fighting to do. But at the moment, we're going backwards, and it's really distressing.
Your views are hardly controversial, Sharon. And in fact, the world's most famous trans woman, Caitlyn Jenner, has said biological men participating in female sport is deeply unfair and must stop. Have you paid a personal price for your views on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the abuse that you get, sometimes it feels very much like a misogynistic movement. It feels like a men's rights movement in lots of cases. We want your support, we want to come into your spaces, we will do this. It's really difficult because I think actually there's a large number of very genuine gender dysphoric young people who really are paying a price now for this sort of misogynistic movement that's coming from, you were talking earlier about the Scottish rapist, for example. I mean, that isn't someone that's had gender dysphoria from a very young age. That's someone who's decided they're going to get a cushier life going into a woman's prison. And unfortunately, then that has a terrible effect on people that have genuine gender dysphoria. So I think we need to really step back and we need to look at what we're doing at the moment. This was a mental health condition for a very long time. And then the World Health Organization moved it out of being a mental health condition. And you have to kind of wonder if someone says, well, I'm a cat or I'm something else, whether it's still a mental health condition. Because the genuine truth is we have a reality of our body. This is our body. It's the only body we're going to get. And therefore, maybe it's about trying to help people to be more secure and comfortable in the body that they've got, rather than medically trying to change them, which will have dire long-term consequences as well.
Oh, I'm thinking about the fact that you are one of the country's most accomplished and famous athletes. What is the point in a 9 or 10-year-old Sharon Davies giving up free time, missing school, having 6 a.m. starts just so that ultimately they will face a biological male in a swimming pool? It seems deeply unfair. Can I ask you, though, with British cycling banning biological males from participating in the sport, is the tide beginning to turn?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, World Aquatics last year did the right thing. They were the first organisation in 7 years to actually ask a single female athlete how they felt about this. World Rugby did it on safety grounds. World Athletics earlier this year, Seb did it in athletics, which is fantastic. World Cycling's been dragging their feet. British Triathlon has done it. British Cycling has done it. But there's still way more sports that are still allowing, males to self-identify into women's competition. And things like Strava and Parkrun, all you actually have to do is self-ID. There's no reduction of testosterone. There's no checking. There's nothing. So women are losing their course records and their Parkrun records all over the country at the moment.
Crazy.
And why wouldn't Parkrun just have an extra box? Let's have a transgender box, a trans woman box.
100%.
How difficult would that be?
100%. Sharon, you're one of my sporting heroes. You're a national icon, and more power to you. The book is out now. It is called Unfair Play: The Battle for Women's Sport, co-authored by Craig Lord and Sharon Davies, MBE. Thanks, Sharon. Next up, we got the papers. See you in 2.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant, the big read, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News. Britain's watching.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Well, it's exactly 10:30. It's time for the papers. But first, a reaction to the Mark Dolan Tonight People's Poll, in which we've been asking you if there was a referendum tomorrow, how would you vote? Well, the results are in. 79.2% say they would vote for Brexit. Only 20.8% would remain. So there you go. And that's what I call a landslide. That's a stronger result than the original one in 2016. It's time now for the papers with full pundit reaction. Let's go. And we kick off with the I paper. Let's see what they're leading with. UK hit by Ozempic shortages for weight loss drug. Manufacturer confirms supply problems due to unprecedented demand, and some type 2 diabetics cannot get their repeat prescriptions. UK medicines regulator says it stands ready to impose new limits on the popular weight loss jab, as pharmacies admit patients are already suffering. Also, House Crunch developers are caught hoarding 1 million plots of land. Hardly a surprise. Daily Express. Caring Prince's mission to honour Diana's memory, compassionate Prince William is filled with a steely determination to tackle homelessness in honour of his late mother. Ahead of what would have been Diana's 62nd birthday tomorrow, her eldest son will launch projects in numerous locations across the country. Also, Chancellor's deal to ease mortgage pain for millions. Of course you can, Mike Porky Parry.
Top left, it says heartbreaking. Father and son who died hand in hand on sub.
How do they know that?
How does anybody know that?
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't aware of the fact that imminently it was going to implode. So it's not as if, oh, we've only got seconds left. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I know. It's bizarre, isn't it?
And of course, there was only 5 people in that. None of them survived. So I was the Daily Express news editor for 5 years, and I would be asking somebody now, drawn up the front page, where did that come from?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, do you think, Michael, that there's anything unethical about taking your child on a dangerous adventure?
Well, funny enough, whilst you were doing your last great piece over there, we had a discussion here about nobody seems to have brought up the fact that a father almost dragged his son into that craft, because we've seen the auntie this afternoon saying he was terrified. He didn't really want to go, but it was Father's Day, so he went to please his father. We all know historically no 2 lineal members of the royal family ever get into the same helicopter together.
Yeah.
Because if the helicopter goes down, you've rubbed out 2 generations of the family. So highly irresponsible, but also very unsettling to see the auntie today talk about the terror this 19-year-old boy apparently went through before he was
almost like
told...
she had a reason to say it, didn't she?
Yeah.
She felt strongly about it, I think, but didn't actually couch it in those sort of
I
terms.
think twice about putting my kids on the back of my moped. A submarine is another level, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. What's your drive? How do you ride your moped?
Well, what we do, I mean, I'm a little bit like Dennis Hopper in Easy Rider, do you know what I mean? I cut quite a romantic figure. No, I've got this little 125 thing, and if I have to, I will drop them off to school or something.
Right.
But I try to avoid it really, because it's risky.
I was on the back of a motorbike once for work purposes. I went all the way from London to Suffolk, but I could actually speak to the guy riding the bike through headphones through the
I've done that
through the helmet. Would you do that as well?
Yeah, I've done that in the past.
Right.
It's a great thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, if you
So
want
are
to
you
lift home
Captain
later...
Dolan when you're on your 125, are you?
Well, I'm not. Sadly, it's not quite as cool as that.
Yeah.
But listen, I wouldn't mind your arms wrapped around me later after the show if you want. and also, we can go on a motorbike.
Yeah. You can put a dog collar around him and pull him around if you want.
Now you're talking.
You can go to the clubs together.
This is getting disgraceful.
You've got to be careful, though, because it bangs, the engine, that is. Let's have a look at the Daily Mirror. Is that right, Dominique and Keith? There we are. The Daily Mirror. Let's have a look at this. Doctors' 5-day strike. More bad news, I'm afraid, for patients. Medics ramp up action with longest walkout in NHS history.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder, actually, when a newspaper prints a lead like that, are they actually celebrating the fact that there's going to be a terrible 5-day problem in the National Health Service? Because, as we all know, the Daily Mirror don't agree with the politics of the present government, and it gives the present government a problem, and they're just highlighting that.
A little bit of a kicking. Let's have a quick last look at that Daily Star headline. And first of all, they're generously offering a £2 bet at Royal Ascot. with William Hill. Other betting shops are available. And Invasion of the Killer Hornets. This is actually very worrying because there's really not enough to worry about in the world, say The Star. A horde of irascible hornets that can kill people with their stings are set to invade Britain and could spell disaster for our much-loved, gentle-natured honeybees. Those are your front pages. I think we've got more on the way, but let's get full pundit reaction now from Emma Burnell, Aidan McGee and Mike Parry. And let's power through this. First of all, the newspaper, Emma, UK hit by shortages of a weight loss drug called Ozempic, which is proving very popular.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the causes of this. I've just seen the headline, but it is proving very popular, and that may be part of the problem. There's been recent reports that it's going to be prescribed much more widely than just people with type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
Great if it works, but you've got to have the supply and you've got to have the supply chain, and that seems to be an ongoing problem. I don't think this is the first time we've heard concerns about levels of supply of this drug.
Well, I'm a type 2 diabetic, Emma, so if you see me stagger and fall before the end of the show tonight, it could be because I'm a victim of this Ozempic problem. Although I don't actually take Ozempic, I don't know where it comes from.
I've only heard of it. I'm type 1 diabetic, but I mean, I just take statins.
Right.
I'm revealing my medical history there on live TV.
Well, I mean, you're a fine figure of a man.
Oh, thank you.
What you don't need is Ozempic.
Yeah, well, maybe.
I mean, I'll take it.
But it's faddish. But these things are quite faddish, though, aren't they? Do you remember 15, 20 years ago, there was one called Olestra. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They used to lace it in the food and things like that, take it a different way. It wasn't exactly a direct supplement.
Ones that make you not process any oil.
It
goes straight through.
I mean,
they say this is politely possible.
Is it not worth considering just a better diet and a bit of exercise?
Of course it is, yeah.
Mark, you know that I have a strong history in this. I used to be 25 stone.
Lost an amazing amount of weight.
I've lost a lot of weight. As your viewers have already told me, I checked in the break, I've got some way to go.
No, you look amazing. You look amazing.
No, not at all. You look fabulous.
What I had was a head start. It's not the only thing you get. So if this helps people get into the right habits, that's great. But you've got to.
So you're saying don't do like 10 or 20 years on this stuff.
No, and apparently it only really works for the first 2 years anyway.
Right.
But in those 2 years, you can absolutely change your lifestyle and your habits. And just get into the things that what I did. I walk everywhere. I walk between 5 and 10 miles a day.
And it's kind of encouragement, I imagine, is it?
Yeah.
It's a supplement. That's the whole point.
It's like a life-saving head start.
Yeah.
Great.
Right.
I got rid of my diabetes too through strict, rigid discipline of my lifestyle.
Stuck to vodka and gin, didn't you?
No, what I did was, on the gin and the vodka, I took sugar-free tonics with them.
That's the way to go.
Yeah, is that right?
You've got to cut sugar out of your diet.
What I will tell you is that if you lose a lot of weight quite quickly, which I did, you don't quite realise the difference in how much alcohol affects you.
Right.
So, like, the drink that previously didn't touch the sides will knock you for 6.
That's right, you're getting better value from me now out then, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah, that's much cheaper.
But how did you, apart from a great diet and lots of exercise...
I had an operation.
What did you do?
I had bariatric surgery.
And what is that? What
I had gastric sleeve surgery, which meant that in 2013, when I had it, they reduced my stomach. Most people's stomach is the size of a cantaloupe melon.
OK.
They reduced mine down to the size of a lemon. Now, that doesn't last because the stomach's a muscle, so as you use...
How long are we talking? How long does it last?
The effects of it, for me, they're still there to an extent. I can't overeat the way that I did when I got so heavy as I did. But I lost 7 stone in a year.
Amazing.
And then I've lost a bit more since then. And then I started to put weight a little bit back on. And I just thought, abso-frickin-lutely not. I am not going back there. No way. That's when I joined Slimming World, which I love. So
it's still old-fashioned willpower as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. But what it gave me, because where I was at, I couldn't walk 100 metres without intense discomfort.
Yeah.
I was always hungry and never full. However much I ate, and I was eating horrific amounts. I got myself into a terrible, terrible state. No one's to blame but me, I get that. But what it gave me was a great new lease of life and head start, and it was up to me then to seize that opportunity and I mean, I won't say run with it, because running's still not my thing, but walk very fast with it.
But walking's terrific for you.
I love walking.
I've just contributed to a book that Julia Bradbury is writing, about walking. Julia knows had a battle with cancer and all that, and I had a battle with my heart. We both think that walking did an awful lot to get us
Oh,
running.
100%. Yeah. Me and my best friend go on a walking holiday every year now. If you told me that 10 years ago, I would have
I've done 16,267 steps
Very
today,
good.
and there's still an hour and 20 minutes left of the day.
How far is that? How far
is that? That is 11.71 kilometres. So what's that roughly?
About 8 miles?
Yeah, about 8
When
miles.
I arrived at the studio, I'd done exactly 6 miles today, and I'll be walking part of the way home. So.
Brilliant. Yeah, I've got another 1,000 steps to get in tonight. Don't
There
you
you
worry.
go. Emma Burnell, if we ever go on holiday together, I'll be taking a cab.
I'll be on the back of your moped.
Yeah, Mike behind looking like a dog.
Right, you're fighting over me. Let's have a look at more papers coming in thick and fast, and I think we've got the Times next. Let's have a look at what they lead with. I think, is that right? What have we got, Keith? Give me your worst. OK, there it is. Oh, there you go. A lovely piece by Esther Ranson. Don't waste a day you are given. Writing about her lung cancer diagnosis. We do wish her well. She's a friend of the show and a remarkable, true national icon. Also, pay blow for millions of public sector workers. Millions of public sector workers face having pay rises of 6% blocked by the government amid mounting concerns they would fuel inflation.
See, I have a question about this, Mark, because a few months ago, when the strikes were kicking off, the line you constantly got from the government was, well, pay rises are set by the independent pay body. And now they're talking about overruling it. So what I want to know, Mark, is were they lying then or are they lying now? Because they both can't be true.
Well, I think they were lying then.
Yeah.
But it raises a question. I mean, we see it with the junior doctors, don't we, in one of the other papers, Mike Parry. That was the Daily Mirror. Doctors' 5-day strike. But surely now, with this crippling inflation that we're having trouble getting on top of, surely the moral case for the strikes is now gone.
Yeah, the moral case is on, but a government's got to rule. So if a government thinks they've got to overrule something that's going to be injurious to the economy, then strong politicians have got to say, no, we're not doing it.
That's their political decision, but they were hiding behind this pay review body.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what I'm saying. They're either lying now or they were lying then.
Sustained. I think you are right. They can't have it both ways.
But they're getting confident. They're getting confident, Mark. These, public sector workers in all kinds of disciplines in public life are getting confident because they see a government that's weak and insipid. And when a government is weak and insipid, when it has a majority of between 70 and 80, that's really bad news for this country.
Yeah, it's a big old headache, isn't it? Where shall we go next? We've got the Telegraph.
Yeah.
Households spared £120 net zero levy, says Shapps.
Yeah.
Measures to fund hydrogen industry won't be tacked onto energy bills, vows Minister.
Yeah, but you could have predicted this, couldn't you, a long time ago? I mean, it's the one thing. It's an open goal if the government hadn't cancelled this, because basically it's all about green levies, isn't it? It's all about, loading up your energy bills, your electricity and your gas with yet another green levy. So I don't think it's a particularly brave thing for the government to do.
It's something they're holding back. It's something they're holding back, isn't it?
It's a headline, yeah.
OK, well, look, speaking of headlines, after the break, we've got the Daily Mail, which has a fascinating headline, plus my pundits will be nominating their headline heroes and back page zeros. Plus, here's a question for you, based, by the way, on recent research about right-wing women being more attractive. What do you think, in terms of political allegiance? Which group is more attractive, righties or lefties? We've got the answer for you. We've been conducting a Mark Dolan Tonight People's Poll, the result of which is next, plus more papers. See you in 2.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching. Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the show. I hope you're enjoying the programme at the new start time of 9 o'clock. So it's very simple, 9 till 11 every Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Wonderful to have your company. We've got more papers. Keith and Dominic, where should we go next? Let's have the Daily Mail. And Boris announces director Keith. Well, of course, he does dominate the front page because he's got a new column that the Mail have paid expensively for. Lefties sneer, but those brave souls on that Titanic sub were heroes, pushing the frontiers of human knowledge. Also, mortgage crisis, Hunt eases pain. Chancellor secures new charter from banks to help thousands of people who are struggling to pay soaring bills.
Do you think, Mark, that when Ted Verity, the editor of the Daily Mail, signed a deal to give Boris 10 grand a week to write a column, the first column was about a lump of cheese in his fridge. His second column is about a story that everybody else in the world has been talking about all week. When are we going to get the beef in the sandwich?
Yeah. You want your money back? I mean, that's best part of £500,000 a year.
It's
nice work if you can get it.
I mean, we were at the News of the World. I was at the News of the World between 07 and 2011. We were paying columnists on sport then probably 5-6 a week.
Yep.
So I mean, yes, we were aware resource paper, but I don't think 10's about what I would expect the going rate for a former Prime Minister.
Yeah, but for a view on a story that's been the biggest story in the world.
In the first couple of years,
I do hear what you're saying, but Boris is the new Diana. You put his face on a newspaper and people buy it.
Yeah,
maybe.
Listen, let's get to a couple of others before we now get to our text poll. What have we got next? The Guardian. A quick look at The Guardian, if we can. Tsunami of dangerous vapes flooding into UK. And exclusive, Ukraine key offensive still to come. OK, that's it. Those are your front pages. Now, listen, let me tell you that was a great story in the papers. According to a new study, conservative women are more attractive than left-wing women. Researchers have used AI to predict a person's political views based on a headshot, to which the women with more attractive features are right-wing. So are conservative women more attractive than lefties? As you know, Mark Dolan tonight is aggressively neutral. So I put it to you, the great British public, in a Mark Dolan Tonight People's poll. We asked you, which political group are more attractive, lefties or righties? And we've got the results. The results are in, and look at that. Comprehensive.
So I think, Mark, it's very unfair on far better-looking left-wing women for me to have been the one on 2 hours on screen while they're doing that poll.
You are the perfect model. Come, bring that poll back if you can, Keith, because let's just give the viewers the exact numbers on that. But it's a landslide. According to our viewers and listeners, right-wing folk are much more attractive, 87.7%. Lefties, 12.3%. There you go. Maybe the lefty could be your guilty pleasure. I do wonder, Mike, do you have a view on whether people of a certain political affiliation are more hot than others?
Well, Ash Sakar has been in the news this week, hasn't she? You know, she's been very controversial about sort of things.
Self-declared communist.
Self-declared communist. But I've worked with Ash. Very attractive. I mean, you know, a hugely attractive lady. And a lot of ladies I work with who are from the left wing of politics are very attractive ladies. But I've got a great story to tell you. When I worked on the Daily Express, I worked with a photographer called Terry Disney, and he was called up
Sounds a bit Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, it does, yeah. He was called up to Finchley to take a photograph of the new leader of the opposition, Margaret Thatcher, OK, at her home up there. And he swears that Mrs Thatcher tried to seduce him. She said, Mr Disney, come up to my bedroom, I've got a load of outfits. And Terry says, I think they're both dead. I know Mrs Thatcher is, I'm not sure Terry is, yeah. And he says she had no problem whatsoever with taking an outfit off and putting another one on. So she was the ultimate right-wing politician woman, wasn't she? Maybe she was a hottie.
There was an MP who had an obsession with her ankles. We were talking in the break, weren't we?
There is a certain type of Tory who really, really fancy Margaret Thatcher.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
They like the bossy matriarch, don't they?
The bossy matriarch,
sort of
the
nanny puts you
powerful
to bed
woman.
early.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Look, ultimately, if the first thing you ask in a bar when someone that you find attractive chats
about politics, what a turn-off.
I mean, even I don't do that, and I'm a political obsessive.
Would you date a Tory?
I've been out with Tories, yeah.
You must have been. Is that like beer goggles?
5 to 3.
I wasn't drunk the whole time we were going out.
Political beer goggles. You wake up in the morning and oh my God, he's a Brexiteer.
Values that you can share that are outside of party politics.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you said that.
I've never had a girlfriend with left-wing persuasions turning down my wish to pay the dinner bill.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Yeah, that's how
I would.
They can be very good at capitalism when it suits them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of people are turned off by politics. It doesn't really come into it. I think if somebody is, is unkind, unpleasant, self-righteous, whatever other bad things you can think of, it's not because of their politics.
No, just experiences you've had.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of people who are brought into politics by the wrong motivations.
Yes.
And a lot of people who are brought into politics by the right motivations. And I think that's true across the spectrum.
Yeah.
I may completely disagree with their prescriptions, but their motivations are
I agree.
genuinely
There's
good.
shysters on both sides.
Yeah.
Now, can we talk about your nominations for Headline Hero and Backpage Zero? These are the winners and losers of the day. Who's caught your eye? Who's your hero today, Emma Burnell?
Martin Lewis, who I thought gave a really, really good and very comprehensive explanation of why interest rates and putting all the pressure onto mortgage holders was actually not going to make that much difference because they're actually a much significantly smaller portion of the population.
20% about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I've just been so impressed by his calm and really just great consumer focus.
Definitely. Money-saving expert. A great hero to me as well. Aidan, your headline hero.
It's a gentleman who may not be overly familiar to our viewers, but I hope he is, but it's a guy called Roddy Forsyth, who is a 5 Live commentator, reporter on Scottish football for over 40 years. Just out of the blue this week, he announced that he was leaving with the season being at an end. He said that he's attributed it to Parkinson's, very sadly. Now, he's a voice throughout my youth, throughout my adult years. Somebody I never met, sadly, because I never actually worked north of the border covering football. But it's so delicate up there. You have to strike such a balancing act when you're covering not just Celtic and Rangers and 2 football clubs going at each other, but there's also this sectarian angle. And I never, of all the years listening to him, I could never guess who he supported. Someone will probably come on Twitter now and says, he's obviously supports so-and-so. I never detected it. I thought it was a fantastic voice. And just at the end of his speech this week, and 5 Live allowed him to give a little soliloquy at the end of his time. He just said that, look, you know, if you can support a Parkinson's charity, he didn't nominate one in particular, but he said get behind it because we're not that far off finding a cure to this illness. And it just hit me.
A truly great broadcaster.
Look, you can mention Martin Tyler as well. I just thought because of the illness element, I thought Roddy Forsyth got the nod for me.
Well said. Both true legends. Mike Porky Parry, your headline hero today.
Do you know what? I can't find the name of my headline hero. I'm terribly sorry.
My team will have it.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, but I'll tell you who it is. It's an elderly couple.
Julia Garner?
Yeah, it's beautiful, honestly. An elderly couple. And the elderly gentleman was down near the pond near to where he lived, and he found a little duckling which had been separated from its parents, OK? So he picked it up, it was a little bundle of fur, and he went around and looked for the parents, couldn't find them, took it home, and they hand-raised it for a year in their home. After a year, the duck was strong enough to go, and the duck flew away. And then guess what? 9 months later, the duck came back with 11 ducklings of her own, marching up the driveway of their house, and they now all live in a pond they've built in the garden.
Mike, after our discussion on vegetarians earlier, I was so terrified that story was going to end differently.
This talk of duck is making me hungry. Nice oyster sauce. But listen, just basically your nominations for Backpage Zeros and a sentence, if you could, Emma.
Sean Bailey, he shouldn't be a Lord. That's all there is to it. He shouldn't be a Lord.
Lockdown rules. Previous.
He lost an election. That's his biggest achievement.
OK, how about your back?
Same as a month ago. Alistair Campbell, for different reasons. Last night he was on Question Time. The Express criticised him and said he was balled out of town. And he went on last night, or 2:30 this morning, and says, I got the whatever the metric is for measuring the applause, I got more claps than anybody else. I mean, we all in top infants or what?
Exactly right.
I've known Alistair for 35 years, and he's been like that every day. Right, mine is Sleepy Joe Biden, because Sleepy Joe Biden has turned down Ben Wallace, who is the defence minister in this country, to be the next NATO boss.
Great nomination, great pundits. Thanks to my brilliant guests, and most importantly to you for your company. We're back tomorrow at 9. Headliners is next.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast.